Well, I've been working on this topic here, love as safety. It's one of our values here at Centers for Spiritual Living. And whatever topic I seem to be working on ends up being my favorite. I'm thinking, gosh, I could write a book about this stuff. Because I'm learning at the same time that I'm teaching you, it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's just been a wonderful experience. So I'll share some of my week with you as we go along. This is what we mean by safety in Centers for Spiritual Living and why it's a value for us. We create a community-wide climate conducive to honest reflection and deep and direct communication. That is always our goal here at Centers for Spiritual Living. And the concept of safety in spiritual terms rests on our understanding of spirit being everywhere present. That is one of the foundational ideas and principles of what we teach here, is that there is one power, one present, all-knowing, and it's everywhere. We can't shut it out. Even if you don't pray in school, guess what? God's still there. Even if you don't acknowledge it, if you don't feel it, if you don't realize it, doesn't matter. It's always there. It is always there, that presence and power. As we understand that, as we come into greater realization of that and living from that place, life works better. It reduces our level of stress, and it promotes a sense of belonging and feeling like I have a place in this world. I'm here for a reason. So that's what we're all about. So I have a particular spin on this. I want to share a couple of things with you. First of all, you saw the name of the talk today. I'm going to say a few things, and maybe you'll start to get the picture of what these like what do these things have in common? Okay. When you increase your knowledge, you realize how little you really know. To shut down your computer, first hit start. You have to be cruel to be kind. You seeing any pattern here? Deep down inside, you know, you're really shallow. How about less is more? Or a crash landing. You seeing a pattern? Anybody? What are these things? What? Yeah. Paradox, exactly. Here's a couple more. A dull shine, a female gunman, fresh raisins. I thought that was pretty unique. Fresh raisins. A wise fool, bittersweet, and then jumbo shrimp. Yes. Yes. Okay. So those are all what we call paradoxes. They're things that are seemingly contradictory and yet true. So that's what my spin on safety this month has been, the paradox of safety. That there are parts of this conversation of safety that seem like they contradict one another, but yet they're still all true. As I was researching for this week's talk, I came across this, the paradox of fear. I've been talking about the paradox of safety. This is the paradox of fear. Crime is down, but many Americans don't feel safe. This is from September 29th, 2017, just a month ago. Now, I spoke on this. I did a TED Talk in 2015, and I spoke on this very topic. The idea that we're all caught up in this fear. You turn on the news, and all you see is bad news, and people are really terrified. But the fact of the matter is that crime rates are going down, and we are actually living in the safest time that we've ever been in. And I wondered if that was still true. I did my talk in 2015, and then here was this article this week. So it is still true, and I want to read you a couple of paragraphs from this article. On the one hand, people became 62% less likely to become victims of violent crime between 1993 and 2014. The number of violent crime victims per 1,000 persons ages 12 or older dropped from 29.3 to just 11.1 in that period. So less than half the crime rate dropped, okay, in just over a 10-year period. And that's according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics. So far, 2017 is on track to have the second lowest violent crime rate of any year since 1990. Is that surprising to anyone else? It was very surprising to me, actually, to hear that statistic for right here and now. And that's according to figures released this month by the nonpartisan Brennan Center for Justice. On the other hand now, surveys are finding that Americans are convinced that a general crime threat against law-abiding Americans is rising. That sentiment at times has found an outlet in politicians who paint scenes of worsening urban war zones. So it's a conundrum, isn't it? While U.S. neighborhoods as a whole are safer than at any time in the past 25 years, many Americans remain convinced that crime is a growing problem. Part of people's outlook depends on where they're viewing from. Are you living in the city? Are you living in the country? Have you been a victim of crime yourself? The reason people so easily embrace this idea that things are really bad out there is because there's a level of discord in our country. If we were all getting along and not all distrusting our neighbors, we wouldn't be so easily persuaded by short-term spikes in crime into thinking that the sky is falling, says Northeastern University criminologist James Allen Fox. Instead, it doesn't matter that the homicide rate is half of what it was 25 years ago. Those are just numbers, he says. What matters is that you turn on the television set and you see plenty of crime. It seems like we're saturated with it. So in any event, the fact of the matter is that we are living in the safest time, and yet, in many ways, we feel more unsafe, probably than we ever have. Why is that? Well, that's a topic for another day that we could spend probably the rest of today on, but I won't. Here's the thing. That fear is not going to stop the end result that we all come to. Right? Every one of us has that in common. Every one of us is going to lay our heads on a pillow one day for one last time. The fear, the worry, all of that concern is not going to change that a single bit. What that fear does, however, is it stops you from living a full life. Right? Living your life to the max, which is what we are all here to do. I know, is that what you all are here to do?
Yes.
Because that's what I'm about. You know, is to get everything I can out of this gift of my life, however long it happens to be. So fear does not stop death, it stops your life. That's what it does. And that's kind of a paradox, isn't it? I've used Maslow's hierarchy of needs as my illustration for the month. And if you've been coming, I don't know if you're tired of seeing it or not, but I love this concept. I love this idea. Psychological concept put together by Abraham Maslow that says we all as human beings share certain traits and characteristics. At the bottom of the pyramid are the things that we all need to be comfortable, to be happy, to live that full life that I've been talking about. And those things are very basic at the bottom of that pyramid. We're talking sleep, we're talking food, clean water, air, shelter, right? Would you agree those things are all absolute necessities? And you realize how important they are when you get sick. When you don't have it, you realize, oh, having a bathroom, being able to go to it is pretty important stuff, right? Yeah. So those are our biological primary needs that we all have as human beings, and we share this with animals as well. The next level up is safety, which is what we've been talking about this month, and that is not just having a place to sleep, but knowing that it's yours, knowing that you have a job, knowing that you have health care, that you can go to the doctor when you need to. That all of those things add to that feeling of security. The next level up is to feel love and belonging, to feel like there are people that care about you, that you're part of something that's bigger, that you're not in this world isolated and all by yourself. Everyone has that need. Every human being has that need to feel like they are part of something else and they belong. When that need is met, you move on to the next thing, which is the idea of having self-esteem. Like, I matter, I'm important, I have something to give, I have something to offer. And self-confidence, a sense of achievement. The next level up from that is what Maslow called self-actualization, and that's kind of the be all you can be. To have goals and dreams, to work on your self-development, to achieve that full potential. And I imagine that all of you have a sense of that being an important thing in your lives, or you wouldn't be sitting here in the Center for Spiritual Living. Now, that's where the Maslow's hierarchy usually stops for most people, because that was the main focus of his research and his work. what many people don't realize was that before Maslow died, he said, you know what, there's another level to this thing. It's not all about self-actualization. There's something beyond that. And that is what we call transcendence, self-transcendence. And self-transcendence is the experience of connection. It's that feeling of oneness. It's that feeling of what I spoke of at the beginning, that idea of God, that presence, that power that is everywhere, and that we can all tap into at some point. You may not like the word God, so don't use it. Use something else. Call it life, call it the universe, call it love, call it whatever you want. But we all have a sense of what this is, even if you've grasped it for just a tiny moment. Right? Holding your baby, or holding a grandchild, or when you're in the flow, doing that thing that you love to do, and you know you're in the right place at the right time doing what you were born to do. Has anyone had that experience? Right? A feeling of deep connection. Or when you look out at nature and you have that sense of awe. Let me go back, I'm not done. You have that sense of awe. That is that transcendent feeling. You know, it's something that is actually very common. It's very common because it's wired into our DNA. The thing is that most people, we forget that. And people instead are going for the things at the bottom of the pyramid because they feel like they don't have it. Right? I don't feel safe because maybe I didn't have that safety growing up, so I spend the rest of my life on that hamster wheel, trying to make enough money, so that I can finally feel safe. Right? Or else, maybe your thing is in the area of esteem. So you're trying to get all the degrees. 1 degree is not enough because I don't feel, I've got to be better than that. I've got to be more than that. This is what my family expected, what my friends wanted, so I'm going to get another degree. And you might go ahead and get another degree. And still, there's kind of an empty feeling because it's still not where it's at for you. So people get stuck in all these different places. You can get stuck chasing after the safety. You can get stuck looking for the love and belonging in all the wrong places, and you keep looking and looking and never finding it. Why? Because it's not the end game. It's not the end game. When you know what the end game is, self-transcendence, all those other pieces fall into place. It's like it fills in all of those cracks in the foundation. Transcendence eliminates lack. It restores our sense of belonging and worth and fills us with meaning, purpose, and joy. That's what we're here to do, is to feel that sense of transcendence. So I've been talking about that. And this is a little bit of a review. How do we get to that place on a consistent basis? Because we all do it kind of hit or miss. You never know when that feeling is just gonna come up for you, and the emotion comes and the feeling, it's like, wow, I'm in that moment. But we can make those moments happen more often. We can stay in those moments more often when we understand how it works. So I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The idea of, and they're not in any particular order, again, okay, just saying, they're all important, they're all part of this idea, this path. Reframing, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. There's something that I know about everybody in here, another little something I know about you. I know that you have all been through some stuff. Anybody? Dramas, traumas, pain, all of those things. Yes, we've all had it. Why do I know you've been through it? Because you're a human being, and it's just part of the game. We forget that sometimes. You're on Facebook and you're seeing everybody's happy posts and life looks wonderful for everybody else but me. Why is it always me? The fact is, your friends are putting what they want you to see on Facebook. You're putting what you want people to see on Facebook. You're not putting your dramas and your traumas. But we all have them. We're all going through them. And I know another thing about you. You may have had dramas and traumas in your life, but you got over them because you're here. You're here. You have survived. Yay for you. Yay for all of us. We got through those pains and that suffering. Reframing is when you take those pain and that drama and that hurt, and you find that nugget. You find that golden nugget, that thing in there that is what you learned from that. How did it make your life better? And if you're still dealing with the situation and it's still causing you a lot of pain, I challenge you to do that. Go home and start thinking about that and say, what was the gift in me going through that situation? And maybe you're going through something now. So do it now. Do it now and start realizing, you know what, I may not know exactly what that gift is, but I know there's going to be something. I know there will be a gift in this situation for me. Right? So it starts moving you up on that pyramid, finding that place of oneness, that place of knowing that everything is okay. Everything's okay. So reframing your past, your situations. Recognizing that power and presence that is in and around and through everything. And there's lots of ways we can do that. The way that I chose to speak about it was prayer. And we have started putting it up at the service when Gail comes up and does our invocation, the steps of prayer that we use in Centers for Spiritual Living. It's a certain kind of prayer that we call spiritual mind treatment. I personally am not fond of that term. I heard the first time I heard it, first time I walked in a center, I thought, ooh, that just sounds weird. Where am I? Who are these people? What is this about? It's an affirmative prayer. It's not a begging prayer. It's not the kind of prayer that a lot of us are used to. It is a specific type. And what we do in this prayer is, are you ready to receive? R stands for recognizing that power and presence. The one that created you, that created the trees and the breeze and everything. You know, we came into this game of life and all the pieces were there already. You know, you didn't create yourself. You can't even breathe yourself. Life is breathing through you. So recognizing that power and presence is the first step. R. U is unifying yourself with that power and presence and realizing that you are part of that. You don't stand outside of it. You are part of that oneness. Are you ready? R, the next R stands for realization. In this step, we claim the truth that we want to experience. We claim it for ourselves. We may claim health, we claim prosperity, claim the relationship, the love that you want, but you claim it from a place of knowing that that possibility exists. And that by claiming it, you bring it into fruition. So, are you ready? 2, T is giving thanks. We give thanks for what it is that we're to receive in anticipation of receiving it because you know that it's on its way. When you give someone a gift and they express thanks, it makes your heart happy, doesn't it? And then you want to do more for that person. When you give a gift and they ignore it or they say, oh, I didn't want that, instead of giving you a thank you, what happens to your givingness? You don't want to do it anymore. You don't feel like giving anymore. It's kind of that way with the universe. You know, when we give thanks, when we are in that space of gratitude, then all these wonderful things keep being added unto you. When you are in that place of stinginess and contraction, you repel the good that is wanting to come to you. So we give thanks in advance. And then the last step is to release it. To release it, to let it go. You say, this or something better. This or something better is coming my way. So that's how we pray. So I have a little snippet of my life that I'll share with you from this week that has to do with that idea of prayer. My son, Justin, delivers pizza. He's 21 years old, and he's living at home, and he delivers pizza. And very often works late at night. Tuesday night, he was scheduled to work to close, which meant that he would be done about 1:30 in the morning and maybe home by 2 o'clock. So came home on his break. He told us, I'll see you later, I'll be home about 1:30. So I get up the next morning, Wednesday morning, and it's obvious that Justin didn't come home the night before. So I was a little concerned, but it's not completely unusual. Sometimes he'll go and stay at a friend's house and forget to call or something. So I wasn't real worried about it, but I did send a little text message, and I called, and the phone call went to voicemail. I waited to hear on the message, so I went about my day. And it was time for Soul to Soul on Wednesday night, And I called before Grady got home. I said, listen, Justin wasn't there. I'm calling the house. He's not answering. Would you just, check, see if he's home? Grady gets home. Justin's not there. I'm getting a little more worked up. It's now 7 o'clock, and it's time for Soul to Soul. We've got people here milling around. The thing's ready to go. And I'm starting to have almost a panic about where is my kid and why has he not answered his phone? Is he okay? So I stayed, I hung out here as long as I could. I came on stage, I did the intros, I stayed for a couple of speeches, and then halfway through it was like, I gotta get home. I gotta go home now and see what's going on. On the way home, I stopped at his workplace. How late did Justin work? Does anyone know where he is? Did he say, was he going someplace after work? They don't know anything either. I go home, and I'm looking in his room and thinking, okay, maybe there's a clue in here to where he might be. Maybe he jotted something down, whatever. So I'm in his room, and then I'm cleaning his room. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what if I have to file a missing persons report? The cops would come in here and they would see this. And thankfully, it gave me something to do so I could keep my mind occupied, stay busy doing, right? So I'm not worrying. But, I'd get those moments of spinning into this panic. And at some point, it finally dawned on me, like, holy cow, you know what? I haven't prayed. I've done the affirmations, right? Everybody said, don't worry, he's going to be fine. But I hadn't sat down and actually prayed about it. So I did it. I sat on the bed, and I just took a deep breath, and I calmed myself, and I reminded myself of what I've been teaching for the past month. And I just got calm and centered and felt so much better. I could breathe again, And I tell you, it wasn't 5 minutes later, he calls. Sorry, Mom, my phone was off. The battery died. I didn't think you'd worry, so I didn't call you. Okay. He got home, we had a nice discussion. We're now looking at alternate living arrangements. But he was fine. He was fine, thank God. Okay, Wednesday morning, my daughter's a police officer with Marion County Sheriff's Office. And y'all know what was going on in Gainesville this week? White supremacists speaking at the University of Florida. The governor declared a state of emergency. There were law enforcement officers from all over the place at this thing. They've been rehearsing what to do if things went wrong. So she gets there 6 o'clock in the morning, I think it was, and she's sending us text messages throughout the day. Sending pictures and everything's going great. Till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a text message from my daughter saying, it's getting real. FHP is losing control. We're going out. And I got that punch to the gut. Again, that fear, like gripping fear for my daughter. Only this time, I remembered the lesson from the night before. And I sat down and I went into prayer. And I thought my worry, my crazy, where my mind was going was not helping anything. And it ultimately was not going to change the outcome of anything either. So I got in that prayer space, I calmed down, all was well. And then the next message from her was, we're on our way home. Everything's good, there was no incident. So, and in that time also, I reached out to my prayer buddies too and said, just cloak Gainesville in love and light. And we'll just know that this thing is going to happen without incident. So, whether those prayers are what did it, I don't know, but I'm just very grateful that it all went well. I know that the prayer helped me. I know that it helped me. That it helped me from going into needless worry and crazy spin in my head. Okay, so prayer, path to transcendence, prayer, meditation, quiet time. You have to get in that place of silence that helps you to unravel all those pieces of crazy that are going on in your mind. I know I'm not the only one that gets that, right? Yeah. Raise your hand if your head ever does that. Okay, great. So, recognizing. What we talked about last week was the idea of embracing vulnerability. Now, there's a paradox for you. When you're afraid, when you're emotionally in pain and in fear, the last thing you want to do is share your vulnerabilities with other people, right? Vulnerability makes us feel like weak somehow. Although the truth of the matter is that your vulnerability is your strength. And you know that when people share their stories and they share their hearts, I know for me, I do a lot of Toastmasters, and we go to the prison, Gail, Ron, myself, Lita, several people from our congregation. And as you see people standing on stage and they pour out their hearts and they tell you their stories, you almost can't help but fall in love with them, right? You can't hate someone once you know their story. And that's what vulnerability does. Vulnerability is not our weakness, it is our greatest measure of courage. And the thing is that in exercising and in stepping out in that courage, we feel then safer and more secure. Right? You allow your vulnerabilities to be seen, and then you've got people suddenly putting their arms around you. Right? And then you know you have the strength, you know you have the resources, you know you have whatever you need to go on. Right? So there is strength in vulnerability. So embrace it, embrace it. The other thing I've spoken about is this idea of reaching out to a larger community. Reach out to your friends, reach out to your family, reach out to the people who can hold you in that safe space and remind you of the truth of who you are when you forget. Come to the spiritual center when you're in that place of doubt and questioning, and you get that boost, that reminder of who you are and why you're here. So I spoke about it from that perspective of the idea of reaching out to your community. And I talked about, those of you who were here, about the fire walk that I did at the minister's retreat. Right, walking 12 feet across hot coals. Now I had done it before. So I didn't have the same level of fear that a lot of my peers did. It was 100, 101, 102, something like that. And I think maybe 95 of them went through it. And of those 95, probably 90 had never done it. So I got to be part of the community that was uplifting. Part of that community that was waiting at the end. You know, you start here at this, looking across these coals, 12 feet of coals, and on the other side was the leader, one of the leaders of our movement, John Waterhouse, standing there with open arms, just waiting, along with friends or whoever people wanted there to catch them when they got through walking those coals. And I was part of that community for all of those people, watching people in their vulnerabilities. There was a minister there who had a fire in his home just this past summer, just a couple of months before we did this. Walked out of his bedrooms into flames. And now here he is doing a fire walk. He was going through PTSD even over this event, as you would imagine. I'm sure that's got to be, I've never been through that one. I don't want to go through that. And he took that opportunity to walk across those hot coals to get over his fear of fire. Yeah, amazing. And you fall in love with people when you see them do things like that vulnerability. So reaching out, having your spiritual community, having your loved ones, your trusted people that you can share your heart with is vital to this idea of transcendence. Now today I'm going to speak about that from another angle. And that is the idea of when we reach out to others to help them, right? The way to become your best self, the way to get to the pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy, that the way to get to that place of transcendence is to go beyond your own ego. We become our best selves, paradoxically, by becoming more selfless. Selfless. Not selfish, but selfless. Now, people have said this in a lot of different ways. Gandhi said it this way: the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. I love that quote, and I know it to be true. I've proven this for myself. I've proven it by what I do. I see it in the people around me. Again, this ministry that we have, this work that we do at the men's prison and the women's prison. There are now how many groups, Gail, Ron? There's 4 at the prisons. There's 1 at a reentry center. All these groups is spin off from our Toastmasters group. And you know, sometimes I feel like I don't even do a whole lot. All we really do is show up. We just show up. And we're just a loving presence for some of these people who've never had that in their lives. You know, I feel sometimes like the mom who's sitting in the bleachers, you know, just cheering on my kids. And some of these guys have never had that experience of having somebody in the bleachers cheering them on and wishing them well. And it is, you get in that space of oneness. It feels like church, doesn't it, Gail?
Oh, it's beyond that.
Yes.
We came home with 2 cards last night that were slipped.
I have to give you a mic because people are not hearing what you're saying.
We came home last night and reached in I reached in the plastic bag to take some stuff out that we take when we go in. And there were 2 notes in there, one for Ron and one for myself. And what the notes said was how much that our loving them meant to them, and how it felt to know that somebody there cared about them. Yeah. And that's that. So it brings me to tears just when I think about it.
Not only do their lives change, but the lives of the volunteers have changed. Right? And I will never look at an incarcerated person or someone who says I'm a felon, will never look at them the same way again. You know, you realize that they're people, just like us. So you find your thing. For me, and I had no idea that was going to be my thing. No idea whatsoever. But it ended up that it was, very surprisingly. I thought I wanted to work with women. And I enjoy working with the men so much more. I don't even know why, but we don't know why. Sometimes these things just happen. You don't know what it is that is going to tug at your heart. But have something, and if you don't know what it is, play around with it. You know, if animals is your thing, do that. If children are your thing, we have a space right here. We have Sunday morning, Sunday school with our kids. We would love to have several someones back there working with our kids, people who love to be with kids, and you find that you get so much more back out of what you give. So the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. This is from Helen Keller. And I just put it in because I think her story is absolutely phenomenal. For someone who couldn't hear, couldn't speak, can't see, so much wisdom that came out of that woman. And she said, life is an exciting business, and most exciting when it is lived for others. Finally, Viktor Frankl said it this way, and if y'all know who Viktor Frankl is. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, right? And logotherapy. He was a psychologist and just an incredible human being. To have gone through an experience of hell like that most of us will never know, can never even conceive of what that horror was, and to come back feeling whole, and not to just survive, to make it through life, but to empower others to live their best lives. Absolutely incredible. Here's what he said. The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or to another person to love, the more human he is, and the more he actualizes himself. What is called self-actualization is not an attainable aim at all, for the simple reason that the more one would strive for it, the more he would miss it. In other words, self-actualization is only possible as a side effect of self-transcendence. When we make self-transcendence, going beyond our own ego, being part of that something bigger, giving ourselves to a bigger cause, all those other things on Maslow's pyramid are given to us. Seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be added unto you. If you're going straight for the security, it's a dead end. You will never find it. You will never feel secure enough. You hear sad stories about people, millionaires, billionaires. Who was it? Howard Hughes, that reportedly died in his bed with money everywhere that didn't bring him any peace ever in his life. And he had more than many of us would ever dream of having. If you're going for that achievement, if that you think is your end goal, no number of degrees, no number of pats on the back, no number of accolades, no number of awards is ever going to be enough. You will always be looking for the next one and the next one, because that's not where it's at. When you make your goal self-transcendence, everything else is available to you. And it is available to each and every one of us. These are human characteristics, they are human potentialities that not everyone lives into. But you're here in this center, hearing this message, not by mistake, but by design. You are here for a reason, and you were meant to hear this today. I'm sure of that. So back to Maslow. Selfless action is a source of strength, said Mahatma Gandhi. Selfless action is a source of strength. And I love this one because I think this is so true. It's when you're acting selflessly that you are at your bravest. Have you ever done something that you would never do for yourself for another person? Right? How many times you ever asked for money? Try to sell something? And when you're selling it for yourself, that can be difficult for some people. But if you're doing it for a good cause, if you're doing it to help somebody else, you know, how many of you have taken time to speak up for someone else? You see that they can't use their voice, but you know, by golly, I'm going to speak up for them. And all of a sudden, you've got all this courage, right? And this strength that you didn't even know was in you because you're doing it for another person. You're doing it for your kid, or you're doing it for your church, or you're doing it for those animals, or you're doing it for the environment, or whatever it is that is pulling at your heart. You find that strength. Utilize that. And then that strength will flow into every other area of your life. Every other area. Your confidence goes up. Your sense of security, and just everything gets better, right? Because you've gone for that self-transcendence rather than all those dead ends that are never going to have you feeling whole and complete. Has this been useful for anyone today?
Yes.